How's it going? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Martin, and today we're going to be talking about American literature. Now, I love American literature. There's so many wonderful authors, so many great books, so it's tricky to narrow it down to just a couple, but that's what I've done for this video. I've chosen 3 of the best books that I've read, fictional works. And none of them are contemporary authors because most of my reading that I've done so far in my life, I'm not that old, I'm only 26 years old, and so I'm basically focusing on works that have stood the test of time, and I'm not so much reading contemporary works. Sometimes I do, but that's not my main focus, and so all of these are by very prominent authors that are sort of well recognized, and so if you can appreciate that, then keep on watching. But before we jump in, don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoy my content. That really helps out a ton. Now, these right here are the 3 books that I have selected, and my selection criteria has been something like, which are the books that have stirred my emotions the deepest, which books have made me laugh and cry, which have the most beautiful writing, poetical writing, and touches on themes that I find really compelling and important. Now, the first book is Mark Twain's The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. The second is Moby-Dick by Herman Melville. And the last is East of Eden by John Steinbeck. And this is a very nice little edition of it. And this was actually gifted to me by someone because East of Eden is one of my favorite books of all time. So why don't we start with East of Eden by John Steinbeck. This was published in 1952, and it is considered one of his masterpieces. You've probably heard about John Steinbeck. He's a very famous American author. I think a lot of his writings are oftentimes compulsory reading, at least in the United States. Something like Mice of Men, you probably heard about, or Grapes of Wrath. But you may not have heard about East of Eden, which is a fantastic read. Now, Steinbeck was clearly deeply influenced by the Christian tradition. It is even evident in the name of the book, East of Eden, referencing the Garden of Eden. And it is also a book that mirrors a story you find in the Bible, namely Cain and Abel. In terms of themes that this book deals with, it has to do with good and evil, the struggle or concept of free will. It's about love, betrayal, rejection, and also family life. There are a great many things you can say about this book. My favorite part is that the characters are incredibly well developed and really interesting. In particular, I love the character of Samuel, which is this older gentleman that Adam, which is the protagonist of the book, comes to know as he moves to Salinas in California. Now, Samuel represents this wise old man character, and what I really love about Samuel is that he's sort of so grounded, balanced, harmonious, and he seems like this incredible father figure, which inspired me, I would say, and it made me think that that's the kind of father that I would want to be. Obviously, when you read a book and you have thoughts like these, that means that it is a book that deeply resonates with you and that you really enjoy. And that's something that I can say without a shadow of a doubt, is that this is a wonderful story with beautiful character development. And it's just an incredible book that I really recommend that you give a try. It's a little bit long, but it's not tedious or boring at any point. At least I didn't find it boring at all. Now let's move on to Mark Twain's The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. This is another wonderful and exciting, important piece of literature, first published in 1884, I think it was. It's also a little bit long, but not so bad. And this is, well, like I said, a very important book. It's actually something that deals with racial injustice and prejudice, which was very much something that was experienced at the time of the publishing and also when this novel was set. There's actually this interesting anecdote by Knut Hamsun, which is probably Norway's most famous author, a winner of Nobel Prize. He's written works like Hunger, you may have heard about it. But he famously went to the United States to get an understanding of the tradition of literature over there at the time. And he sort of said that there was no original authors or writers in the United States, perhaps except Mark Twain. Now, Mark Twain is obviously very famous and very well celebrated author, perhaps the most important figure in the tradition of American literature in terms of taking a step towards a more distinct and modern type of writing, I think, in the American tradition. So this book is an exploration of themes like morality, racism, justice, free will through the eyes of the young protagonist, Huckleberry Finn. And he goes on this adventure down the Mississippi with Jim, who is a runaway slave. And they develop this friendship, which he didn't think was sort of possible to begin with. It is an incredible description of what it was like to live at the time in the United States, you know, during, I think it's set around the 1850s, 1860s, something like that. And Twain writes in a very humorous way while still touching on incredibly serious topics. One of the big takeaways from this kind of book has to do with moral development. Obviously, Huckleberry Finn was raised to look down on black people and slaves. And this is sort of the thing that he struggles with throughout their adventures, because at the one hand, he knows that he should hand this slave over so that they can go back to their owner, and he's not supposed to be a free man. And on the other hand, he's developing this great friendship and relationship with this person, and he sees him for what he is, which is just another person. And he has, you know, all the same attributes and should have all the same rights as you do, because he's just an individual like yourself. And perhaps, you know, some of these cultural ideas aren't actually justifiable. And that's sort of these things that Huckleberry Finn struggles with throughout the book. And it parallels, or it sort of points towards this interesting theme, which has to do with moral development, which is a continual process, I think, in our world. So a wonderful book. Highly recommend you check this one out as well. Call Me Ishmael is the opening of this very renowned book, Moby-Dick by Herman Melville. This is an incredible book. It is considered one of the great American works of literature. Understandably so. It is such a diverse type of book, you know, including so many different genres in a way, which was not common at all at the time. It's written by a polytheist, Herman Melville, who was a very interesting character. He was, obviously he wrote this book, which is very well appreciated today, but during his lifetime, it was not very appreciated at all. And so he didn't really get to see the impact that his works had, unfortunately. So through the eyes of Ishmael, who is the protagonist and the narrator of this story, we have a tale that explores themes of free will, nature, the incredible forces of nature, and how, and sort of man's relationship to that, obsession and revenge, which is very well portrayed in the character of Captain Ahab. You've probably heard of him. He's also a very famous character, sort of a little bit Shakespearean type of character. This monomaniacal captain that is doing everything he can to take revenge on a whale that cost him his leg. And a lot of the story sort of occurs on a whaling expedition He's essentially a whale fisherman, Ishmael, out of Nantucket in the United States. And one of the things that I really enjoy about this is also that it's a very diverse crew of people on this whaling expedition, which I think is a nice allegory or a symbol of the United States as well, which was sort of also a very diverse place, which I think Melville really appreciated, and which I think is also one of the reasons why he's considered a polytheist, and he was a very open-minded person, and he believed that there was a lot of richness and great things about having such a diverse nation and perhaps also crew on this particular boat. I would like to mention that this is quite a dense book, so it can feel a little bit tricky to get through from time to time. It has a ton of biblical and Shakespearean references throughout, and it's a wonderful blend of different, genres. There's adventure, there's philosophy, there's also encyclopedic knowledge about whales. Like it's quite the funny mix, and it's very rich in symbolism, especially this whale, which is what this book revolves around, which is why it's called Moby-Dick as well. It's an excellent symbol of many things. I mean, man's limited knowledge, nature, perhaps even God. So there's a lot to this book. I've only read it once, so I should probably read it again, and then one more time, and perhaps another to really grasp it. But I really enjoyed reading it, and that's why I would like to recommend this book to you as well. So if you're looking for some great American literature, you can't go wrong with any one of these three, or perhaps even all three of these books. So thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you